doesn't like somebody who says I would say that it's one of the most important characteristics that I look for when determining just about any relationship that I have. It's, to me, a sign of intelligence. It's a sign that you can be agreeable with somebody. It's important. It's brutal when you're around people who can't take a joke or who are never funny. The worst is the passive-aggressive person that makes mean jokes but then can't get pushed in any way when it's their turn to take one. So, yeah, sense of humor is important. I don't know how it gets developed. I don't know if it's innate, if it's learned, whatever the hell it is, but it's important. It's a great thing to have. And Brad Marchand has it. There is just no doubt. The guy has an incredible sense of humor, especially in the world that he lives in. Like, compared to the rest of the NHL, Brad Marchand is George Carlin, he's Chris Rock, he's Dave Chappelle, he's whoever you identify as the GOAT. I think at this point, Brad Marchand has established himself as maybe the guy who has played the fans through the media better than anybody else. The guy who has weaponized media better than any player that I can remember. There's been funny players, right? No doubt about it. There's been guys with sense of humor. There's been huge personalities. Like, if you were there for it, you would recall the thought of, man, Jeremy Roenick is going to be the biggest thing on TV because he could talk that game. He was really funny. But it's a different thing with Brad Marchand. And it's certainly a different thing with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I know that everything's through the lens of, oh, well, it's all about Toronto. I'm sure he's given some great sound bites about the Tampa Bay Lightning over the years. I'm sure he's given some great sound bites towards the Montreal Canadiens over the course of his career. But yeah, the guy just has the it factor when it comes to knowing what to say to the media. And so if you didn't hear it, here is Brad Marchand in speaking to the media yesterday in a scrum about his free agent pursuit to Toronto, and then kind of rolling in like 3 or 4 different jabs into his answer.
It was between Florida and Toronto of where I was going to go. I mean, ultimately, if I never thought that it was going to be possible to re-sign in Florida. I really didn't, just with the guys that we had up and stuff like that. But, Toronto, I was serious about what I said with where they're at. As a group, the way that they're competing now, they compete the right way, which is what they kind of had to get over that hurdle. It's unfortunate the fans ran Marner out of town. That kind of, I mean, that's a huge impact for their group. He's a point-a-game player. Like, that hurts. So, but, yeah, I mean, they're a great team, great organization. But, once the opportunity came up to sign here, it was kind of no question. It's where I wanted to be. But just with where we were, I didn't think it was going to be able to happen.
Incredible. Predictable, but incredible. And I say predictable because my buddy Sam, he posted a clip of me yesterday from Leafs Talk right after Brad Marchand re-signed with the Florida Panthers. And I said, the lock of the century is he's going to show up in Toronto next season and say he thought he was going to be a Toronto Maple Leaf, which is what he did right there. Oh, I didn't think it was possible that I was going to return to Florida. Meanwhile, it's pretty clear what happened. He used Toronto for leverage. Maybe he would have come here. I'm not saying that he's not sincere, that he thought about there was a scenario to do it, but the guy wanted to be a Florida Panther, and he was pushing the Florida Panthers to get overly creative with his contract. And Toronto looked like a serious destination to Florida that could poach him, and that was willing to pay him. They were losing Mitch Marner. I will tell you this, though. As funny as Marchand is and as great as he is with the media, Because that there is no doubt. You can hate him, no doubt about it. You can hate Brad Marchand all you want. And to the point where I see people getting up in a tizzy where I saw a couple of people with the takes of the media is enabling Brad Marchand. And I laughed my ass off seeing that. I went, oh, yeah, like it's looking for clicks. It's the media that did it, that has Brad Marchand talking the way that he talks. They should take the microphone away from him. They shouldn't even report on the things that he says. You got one guy who really says stuff to me. Well, now two, because Trevor Zegras has entered the conversation. More of that. More Trevor Zegras Anaheim games, please. I kind of think Brad jumped the shark a bit. It was the actor who looks at the camera and winks in the movie. He broke the third wall. It was such a huge troll. It was such a big attempt. And we've known, you've always been able to guess with the Marchand stuff, right? Like, he got people so worked up in a lather during the offseason when he talked about the pressure the media puts on the players and how it's unfair because the Leafs are so good, right? Don't even mention the fact that the core four had only won 2 playoff rounds and that Brad Marchand had beat them every time he faced them. Don't think about that. It's the media that was too critical. It's the fans who chased Marner out of town. It wasn't the contract disputes. It wasn't this. It wasn't that. But people fell for it again in the offseason. They really did. They tripped all over themselves going like, we've always known it all along. And that's fine. I think if you're a fan of this team and you've invested as much as you have in this team and you love the Leafs or whatever team it is that you have, you're always going to look for scapegoats. You're always going to look for things that bother you. And my guess is with a media market like this where there's so many different conversations about a team, I think many positive, I think many negative. I think a lot of people cover them quite fairly, to be honest. I truthfully believe that there are not very many members in Toronto's media or fan base that are just like looking to be hot take artists for the sake of quote unquote clicks. You want to gravitate to the stories that have an impact, but nah, it's just not what it is. But when you have this much and there is this much noise, if you're a fan and it annoys you and it gives you pissed off, that's fine. It's your right. Whatever. I've had people in my life who are podcast hosts or who are news anchors, and I'm like, damn it, they're not doing the greatest job, or this person drives me nuts. So I get it. I don't think it's a totally irrational thought, but I don't know how you could look at Marchand doing that one and not feel like he showed his hand of what it is that he's trying to do all the time. And I don't know how he didn't break a smile. I really don't. That's actually the beauty of what he did there. He never broke once. Because that, to me, saying the Marner, the fans ran him out of town line and not cracking a wry smile, incredible work by him. So, yeah, again, I think that he has cemented himself as the greatest of all time, playing fans and media. But at this point, I just don't know how you could be a fan. It's like Skip Bayless. When someone sends me a Skip Bayless thing and they're like, can you believe he said this? And I go, come on, you know what he's trying to do. Why are you sharing this with me? That's sort of now where Brad Marchand has become. And yeah, you know what? Maybe the Leafs did take note of what he had to say yesterday about competing the right way, because they sure did. It was one of their better wins of the season. Kris Versteeg of the Clever app, 2-time Stanley Cup champion. Oh, he's not there. Okay. Sorry, I thought I had him waiting on the line. He just texted me, they calling, haven't had a call yet. Yeah, it's Zoom. It's Zoom every time. But yeah, great complete effort by the Leafs last night. Really, really nice game for them. Just out-muscled the Florida Panthers. They were too much for the Florida Panthers. I thought that Florida looked frustrated at times playing Toronto. That they actually looked like the team that let it get to them a few times with the physicality. Matthew Nyes was an absolute beast. I think that the Robertson, Roy, Cowan line yet again provided something. Matthews continues to sparkle. The numbers with Matthews over his last 10 games, they're impossible to deny. And if that's who the Maple Leafs are, if they can tap into that version of themselves on a consistent basis, like they're going to have their let-up nights, and because of their track record, people, and myself included, are going to overreact to them. They are. They just are. They dug themselves a huge hole to start this season. They have not performed, I would say, even adequately. But a game like that and a stretch like this, it's hard not to look at it in comparison to the rest of the East and a flat East and say, that team playing that way can do anything. That version of Austin Matthews puts all the pieces in place correctly. All of a sudden, everybody fits into their role. We were talking about this a little bit last night on Leafs Talk, how now there's a bit of pressure on Nylander when he returns to fit into this group and to not have the momentum shift that they're playing with right now, the style of play that they're playing with right now. But man, the power play looks better. They did it again, shorthanded on the blue line. Matthews absolutely rolling. The depth suddenly adding meaningful impact. And yeah, Florida's not the Florida of last season. They're missing a bunch of guys. That's an important game for them. And the Leafs dominated it. Outside of the score effect stuff where it's, Florida gets a goal late and then they're kind of putting the pedal down and they're trying to beat Toronto there. Like, okay, the first couple minutes of the hockey game, the rest of that was just a Toronto Maple Leafs beatdown. So, yeah, I'm sorry, but it's a weather vane market and I'm a weather vane guy, but you look at a game like that and you say, yeah, that's the formula. If they can be that, if they can tap into that version, dangerous team. Now Kris Versteeg joins us. You forgot that it was Zoom?
Let's just say I thought it was old school still. The curse was broken.
Yeah, the curse is broken.
And after the curse, I thought we'd go right back to phone call, but we're on Zoom. I forgot you're all high class now.
Yeah, I am high class. Yeah, that's the way that it is.
That's my bad, everyone.
Okay.
But you can carry the show well, so great job.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. I do want to start with this. I know you listened to the Marchand clip, and my takeaway from it was he really is the greatest that I've ever seen in terms of using the media as a weapon to communicate a message to the other team and to rile up a fan base. Like this past offseason, he had one where he talked about how when the Leafs lost, he felt bad for them because they have so much pressure on them from the media that it's just not fair. And so many fans bought it. Like it was discourse for about a week. And then through free agency, I had to ask guys questions about it. Like when I had Dakota Joshua on, I went, hey, how do you feel about the pressure? I'm texting guys going, how did you feel about the pressure? And I was like, shut up, Marchand. Like, this is nothing. But last night or yesterday afternoon when he delivered that speech, I actually felt as though he jumped the shark a little bit because it was so grandiose and it was so obvious that it was such a troll that I don't know how you could ever work yourself up about anything he says again, knowing that is just so clearly his intent.
Well, he's talking like he's a mole in the locker room, talking like he's a member of the team. Yeah. So how he goes about it and what he does is always interesting. It's, it gets inside the locker room, obviously, with the media who's going to ask more questions about it, like yourself. But just like you said, he is the king of that. The way he goes about it, how he acts like he's a member of the Toronto Maple Leafs when he talks, and he talks about how stylistically they play and what their lineup needs and how they look without Marner. It's actually brilliant. Obviously, it backfired a little bit yesterday that they lost, and I think he got caught with one there where I don't know how long he's going to be out for. He obviously didn't return, but and sometimes you got to pay the piper when you act or play like that and you talk like that in different ways. But it is an interesting way to go about things, and it gets people talking.
I love it. That's the thing is,
great.
So you saw the Zane Parekh thing, right?
Yeah.
How he mentioned how when he's in Calgary, guys want him to be a robot and he doesn't want to be a robot. And I actually kind of felt bad because I didn't dig deep enough into the story to see how real this was versus the Twitter headlines, but apparently some of his teammates were not too pleased with him talking like that. And yeah, there's a little something to be said about how he's a younger player and he hasn't earned his stripes in the league yet to be speaking out that way, that maybe he got a little over exuberant. Whatever. I don't mind it if guys want to share their thoughts and be a personality if they have the personality. It gets into uncomfortable territory for me when someone's trying to put it on. Like you saw this in the UFC a lot after Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor came in and he was a real one-of-one personality. He could do all the trash talk and it built up fights. And then when he left, there were certain fighters that said, well, I'm going to follow that guy's lead and try to be the next version of that guy. And what resulted was guys like Colby Covington, who never resonated, who sucked. And just weren't funny. They weren't the Chael Sonnens. They weren't the Conor McGregors. And so if you're trying to be that where you're forcing it, I don't think it's going to work. But I do want more players to look at Marchand and say, what he's doing, the head games, the way that he can play this, the attention that he can get, the coverage he can get, I wouldn't mind picking up a couple of things from that guy.
No, 100%. And like you said, when it comes to personality, it has to be genuine, right? Like if you see a guy, like remember Subban, everyone at the start was a little, taken off, but his personality was honest, right? He loved the media. He loved being a part of it. He loved also talking trash, whether it be on the ice or wherever it is. And then once people started to realize it was a genuine personality, they started to accept it. And it's similar with the Zane thing. Zane's an outgoing guy. He's a guy that, likes to have fun and stuff like that. I think where the players would look at that piece is it's almost like he was blaming the players, I guess, if you take that little snippet of what he said. So I think those players are like, hey, I haven't really told you anything. We're just trying to help you. Or maybe it looked like a little bit of blame laid, but that's just a learning experience for Zane. And when we come to most guys, there's a lot of guys in the league that have a ton of personality, that are hilarious, that aren't on the screens, or they're nervous to get on the screens. And that would help. But a guy like Brad, that's just been around for so long, who he's hated, he's loved, he's hated again, he's licking guys, he's doing everything. He's kind of been through everything. And he's done it as long as he can. He just has the respect to do it now. And pretty much whatever he does or whatever he says, people are like, he's just trolling. Like they don't even know if he's actually being honest anymore or trolling.
No, it's the idea of you develop a character, but then you can't define the lines between where the character ends.
Get out.
Yeah, exactly. That's Brad Marchand. He's been doing
like how when most hockey players, we say we put on our equipment and we become someone else.
Yeah.
He's just that 24 hours a day now.
Yeah.
No. He probably goes home and his wife's like
turn it off.
Turn it off. Let's go.
Please turn it off. Like stop all of a sudden trolling me.
You don't have to chirp our kids.
Exactly. No, he's 100% doing. He's working on his material 24/7. Yeah. I actually also. So when he's probably going to make a huge pivot into media when his career's done, maybe not. Like you never know. It's guys like this, but it does seem the way that it's going is he'll be getting a pretty healthy contract south of the border for a media deal. But I actually usually feel a little sorry for guys like him, where it like the same thing happened with Colby, and I don't think he would mind me saying this, where it's like. The guy is hilarious, and he's loved by his teammates, and he's clearly got a big personality. But then you show up to do media, and everyone's like, be funny. And it's hard when it's put right in front of you and on TV. Like, that's a transition. I remember when Biz went into TV right at the start, too, and he was really forcing it. Yeah.
And then he started to get comfortable, and TV is not easy.
That's right.
Man, when it's like 20 seconds, be funny, and if you're not in the right setting or right surrounding, like when I was on Sportsnet, it's like you got 20 seconds, get it out. TNT's a little more open to conversation and like getting the personality out of the guy. It's just a different makeup and setup. But you're right. When you're set up to be funny, and you're not funny early on, then people are like, what are we doing? So
tell a story. Like it's like going up to a comic and saying like, oh, you're a comedian, tell me a joke. You're like, oh God.
Tell me a joke.
Yeah,
and you're waiting to laugh and
no, it's a nightmare. Okay, so to the Marchand thing, I do wonder if his comments played even 5%, 1% into the way the Leafs played last night, because that is as great of a game that, like, the first two periods, considering the opponent, considering the physicality, just the dominance that team had, shift to shift to shift, like, hard to picture one where they looked that complete and that close to what I think Brad Treliving's blueprint is.
Yeah, I think with what you're saying about Marchand to play, I feel like it would, like they took a couple healthy runs at him. Remember Max at the end of the game took a run, or he took a run at Bennett. But I guess like just throughout the game, guys finishing, Robertson, maybe it sparked him a little bit. But what I really liked is they got their smaller guys in the lineup and they played big. Right? Remember when we've talked about small guys entering the lineup, playing small? Those small guys, Robertson was finishing. Obviously, I thought he was in the fight on the one where he got decked and then Nyes walked out of the corner. When their small guys play big, and they play skilled. You could just see the puck movement as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like how efficient the puck movement was. Like guys, tick, tick, move, get open, finish a hit. It was really clinical and surgical. And like I said, when you instill those smaller guys, you kind of get them around each other. You had Robertson, obviously on a line with Cowan, and they feed off each other, and they have a defensive forward like Roy that's going to protect him, but they're also playing physical and skilled. It's a hard matchup for the other team. So it was nice to see, man, like Robertson, how far he's come as well, and how he's getting more confident. He's got over a half point a game now. It's impressive to see when those guys actually play with bite, right? And intensity and skill, and how it can change the makeup of the lineup and the depth in the lineup to make it more dangerous.
So I do want to talk to you about two of the bigger guys from last night's game, like Matthews and Nyes. But just because you mentioned them, I'm going to stick with the Robertson thing for a second, because you never gave up on it.
Yeah.
You were always a believer in the game and in the skill. But to me, a year ago, one of my biggest issues was every time he got contacted, and sometimes without contact, he was on his ass. He was swimming around. He just could not stay on his skates. It was strange almost. Like you were seeing it almost once a game with him. And he's getting healthy scratch, and he's trying to find his way back in the lineup. And you knew he could score. Like he can finish. He's got the big shot. Maybe he didn't get the ice time that he wanted or that he needed. But this year, the jump in the rest of his game has been significant. He's not just a guy that is, okay, you got to worry about the shot and that's it. He can go into the corner and make a play. He's been making good reads. He's been making good passes. He's found chemistry with his line and with Nick Waugh, who's a player that I don't think before the season you would have just assumed, oh, yeah, that's the right fit for him, is being on a third line. What are you seeing with his game?
Well, remember, even when he was getting hurt all the time, he was very one-dimensional, right, with the puck. Wasn't working on give and goes, wasn't spinning off guys, trying to take guys on too much. And honestly, it was a little similar to when I played with Sam Bennett, right? Sam Bennett he's not obviously the same player, but it's just what players have to learn when they come into the league is how to make a 50-50 puck 100% possession rather than taking on contact and maybe turning it over. Just little plays, right? Or situations on the ice that you're going to get hurt. So just watching how Robertson's now starting to utilize his line mates, utilize his feet, open to areas, not put himself into situations where he might get hurt or he might take on contact. So I just always seen how his game could be. And when his feet are going, what it could be. And then when he's giving opportunity, now he's on the second power play unit. He's feeling important. He's getting confident. I always felt that it was there. Now, who knows if it was going to be here or not. Now it's actually coming to fruition here. But it does show you when the coaching staff has confidence in you and you have confidence in yourself. And you've probably gone back to the drawing board. And that's kind of what I've always said about Marner, too, when it comes to playoff time. Go back to the drawing board and see how you're going to get inside, right? Not be on the perimeter. With Robertson, it's like, go back to the drawing board and see how you don't take on so much contact, what you got to do within the game to get open, how you got to get onto the power play. And when you're on there, how do you stay? So he's just a guy that, pushed through a lot of adversity, right? A guy that has a big heart, big character. And it's been impressive to see him play because his motor is so high. He's got such a high motor, and that is an infectious trait throughout a lineup when you see a guy that just doesn't give up on pucks, give up on plays, and he's not the biggest guy.
Yeah, I've loved his game this year. I'm actually kind of shocked at the degree in which I've turned around on him, because he'd always have these little stretches where he played very well. And McKee and I on Leafs Talk, I called him Chris Angel, the mind freak, because he'll trick you. Like, he would trick you every once in a while and go, oh, he's somebody. And then he'd go through a stretch of 3 games, and all of a sudden he's a healthy scratch again, and you're like, damn it, I got tricked again by Nick Robertson.
But if you looked at his minutes, though, in those times, right, like he's getting 12, 13, 14 minutes. Like, it would be 12 minutes, 7 minutes, right? And if he doesn't get a good shift, it's 8 minutes. So the biggest thing with him is consistently building minutes into his game and seeing if he can attain it, like, time and time again. But, like, that's exactly right. He was a guy who would come play one game. He'd probably get put in the lineup and he'd play a decent amount of minutes. And then another guy gets healthy. He gets dropped down. His minutes go down. And he is a skill guy. He needs to feel the puck.
This was one of the important things for me again last night, too, where we're talking about the formula for success. Yes, they were physical. Yes, they were moving the puck. Yes, they were winning puck battles. Yes, they got good goaltending, all of these things, but Berube has started to shift a little bit more into rolling three lines. And I don't know if it's because Nylander has been absent and that has helped free him up a little bit to not rely on the same things, but they move Nyes to a different line. And last night, Nyes ends up playing like 16 minutes. I go, that's great. That's totally fine, because now when you're rolling these four groups where you've got the Lawton line looks fine, you've got Roy who's playing extremely well. Tavares isn't scoring 5-on-5, but with Nyes on his line, like, you know, it's been working. And then Matthews has been his best version of himself. It doesn't feel like they're just leaning on the same three guys to score and the same three guys to give them something every single night, that finally you're starting to see a little bit of dispersion of trust.
And how long have we been saying this?
Forever.
JD?
Literally every time we talk.
Literally every time we talk is there's good hockey players in this lineup. There's good hockey players deeper in the lineup. Is Nicholas Waugh like this offensive guy? No, but he can protect two offensive guys with him. We've said it back in the day. Nyes can carry a line, right? Obviously, Tavares can still help out, whether it's center or wing or wherever you need him. Nylander now, this is going to be the interesting thing. He's day-to-day, right?
Yeah, but it's a weird – but the thing with the Leafs when they do day-to-day, now he's on LTIR, retroactive.
Yeah.
But, yeah, you can't trust anything they say when it comes to injuries.
And how long, but just seeing how when the guys now are in this lineup, they feel important.
Yeah.
When Nylander comes back, how are these guys going to feel in situations? And is Nylander going to buy into the way they need to play to win? And that is going deep in your lineup. Like you said, maybe now he takes Cowan's spot. You know, whose spot does he take? And when he comes back, do they buy in? Because we've always said, in order for the Leafs to win, you got to get your guys dispersed throughout the lineup. You got to make more guys feel important. When you need a goal, you can go to your top guys. It's not that hard. But get other guys bought in. Your stats won't be as padded because your minutes aren't as high, and you're not getting as many good looks all the time with good players, but your team will win. And I think that's going to be an interesting piece, is when Nylander comes back in, is it just back to the well? Or are they going to honestly keep playing the same way with making their top nine guys feel important, a fourth line that you can trust in any situation, and then a power play that obviously it looks better now. I think it looks a lot better because obviously Steve's starting to implement some low plays and stuff like that. But a power play that Nylander will have to get bought into on quick puck movement, different plays, not so stagnant and just like stationary shooting.
Yeah, last night, Scott Lawton played 2 fewer minutes than Austin Matthews, and Waugh and Tavares played the same amount, around 15. Like that is materially different than things that we have seen in the past. It just is.
Yeah.
Like that
24. We would have saw 24 minutes with Austin and Mitch.
Yep.
23 or 20 or to 19 with JT, right?
Well, and you got to think too, for those guys, like, man, Matthews with the health question marks and the workload that he's had over his career, you're trying to keep him healthy. Tavares being a little bit older, and man, he scored 1 5-on-5 goal in his last 20 games. Like, it's not been great offensively for him. But if you're going to have those guys remain fresh and then also have the other guys engaged, like, I just look at those minutes and say, yeah, it's not going to be that way every night, but the more nights you can get like that, the better.
No, and that's how it should be. And that's how it should be. And the nights you got to go to your guys maybe on the road when you don't have the matchups, those are nights you can do it, right? But you got to pick your nights. You got to find how to get more guys involved. And you know, when was it? Last year, the year before, when Matthews went down and everyone got kind of pushed down the lineup and they dispersed it. They went on like a 5-game winning streak. I think Riley was out. Was that last year?
Last year, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then when they came back, it just flipped back to what it was before. So they just got to get everybody feeling important. And when the big guys come back, have them bought into this is how it's going to be. We need you guys, but that'll be the interesting piece to me, is if they sustain this level of play and the big guys start to come back.
I think one of the biggest question marks now for me is about the power play that you mentioned, is getting the buy-in from Nylander with the way they're playing. I think that he will do it, but the power play is a real thing now because they've put Nyes in the bumper. They look way more creative. Guys are just moving around a lot more. It doesn't look nearly as stagnant. Guys aren't just holding on to the puck. It's quick moving. Matthews is zipping around. But Michelli looks like a real fit on power play one and has given them a dynamic that they haven't had in a while, and he's playing in that Nylander spot. What do you do?
I like that you use the word freedom, right? Like, it looks like they're a little more free out there. There's guys willing to move to other areas on the ice. Where before, what we said, it was like a stagnant 1-3-1. Get it up top, get a shot. Get it over to Matthews, get a shot. Matthews is now, like, even on the first 2 power plays, Matthews is dragging it down. Tavares kicks out to the corner, a little bump play. Matthews drives it to the net, almost hits him back door, right? Where you wouldn't really have seen those plays. And then it's like, get that puck down low, get it back up top. Michelli obviously has a high skill level and a brain that computes at a really high level, so he fits well there. I do think, again, when Nylander's back, if he kind of buys into, like, you can move around. There's certain set plays that allow you to get free shots or better looks or better opportunities. But I think it's just the quick puck movement, understand what your jobs are, understand what your roles are, and then start to get a little more creative down low and in other areas of the ice. And I thought you saw that because, again, like Michelli, the only way for him to keep getting on the power play is to get the job done. So you're seeing a guy that's doing all the right things who doesn't have the same skill set as Nylander. So it's like when Nylander gets back, imagine what it could be if everyone buys into what it should be. And I think it is just 1 minute power play. Let the 2 power plays compete against each other. Does Nylander go on that? Maybe not. Maybe Michelli stays if it keeps clicking like this and they start to score finally a little bit more. And then, see what that second unit can do with the Nylander and let them compete against each other. Brings a little bit more depth and balance to the power play. But just from what I saw, it looked like more freedom to do what they need and do what they want. And then some coaching there to help them understand, hey, this could work, this play could work. And from there, it'll start to build. You just got to get a couple and get it going.
I have a really tough time believing that they're going to put Nylander on power play 2 when he comes back, given he's the same guy who wanted to play on both power play units at one point.
Yeah, I get it. That's why this is interesting, right? When he comes back, if the first power play unit's going and it looks good, he goes power play 2, which is a good problem. Maybe he's pissed off, but if he gets that second PP going, and I like that second PP.
Same.
They tick it around quick. They get good opportunities. They usually only get 30 seconds, but imagine you could bump that up another 20 seconds and you have two power plays with some high skill guys working it and competing against each other for who's going to start a PP. That's kind of what's, I think, prime for success. There is no Draisaitl and McDavid on this team that can carry a 2-minute power play and run at a 30 to 40% clip. This team, I think, needs to have competitive balance within the lineup, and the same thing goes for the power play.
Yeah, just the way that I'm looking at it right now from a personnel standpoint on power play 1, you're not doing the 5 forwards thing anymore. Like, that was a luxury that you had when Mitch Marner was on the team. Okay, so he's not coming off. Nyes in the bumper is working, so Nylander's not going to play that. He's not going to play net front, so he's not replacing Tavares. He's certainly not replacing Austin Matthews right now. So it just comes down to him versus Michelli. But I think the point you and I are both making is that one of the big differences with the power play right now is that quick decision-making with passes, and Michelli does that. Like,
he's just making quick plays.
It's
just quick plays. And then it's like the understanding, like, the puck should be on Austin Matthews' side as much as possible, right? But maybe when Willie's on, maybe he's like, I want the puck on my side more.
Yeah.
But the way the power play's set up, you have Tavares as a lefty. He's more dangerous to be low with Matthews on that side. So that side of the ice should be more puck dominant. And I think Michelli understands that, right? And I think that's why you have a buy-in from the entirety of the power play right now is the PP is going to run off of Austin's side, where if Nylander gets in, does that same mindset hold and stick?
Yeah, I would like to see it where Nylander comes back. He doesn't immediately go on power play 1, swapping out Michelli and change the momentum. That he does exactly what you're saying, is the centerpiece of power play 2. They try to bump up the time a little bit more if it's not scoring goals. And then if power play 1 starts to struggle, if they go into a little bit of a lull, throw Nylander out there, or be asking Michelli to just be the first guy that comes back to the bench saying,
that's all you say.
Yeah, like, hey, hustle off. Michelli, you do not get the same luxury as Matthews. When it hits the 45, 50-second mark, and it's a clear, you're coming to the bench and Nylander's jumping on and getting some time with that unit and trying to get a little comfortable. Ease him into it. Don't just hand it to him. Because, I think we just keep saying the same stuff about, hey, having healthy competition within your roster is fine. I just worry about, honestly, I worry about the dynamic between Nylander and Berube. They seem to respect each other, and Berube said all these funny clips about, hey, I just leave Willie alone, and we try to I'm learning a lot from him that way in terms of coaching. But, yeah, man, Nylander really loves ice time. He wants more. He loves the power play. And the way that he was playing before he had the injury, and maybe that was part of the reason why he wasn't performing up to the way that he was, but I genuinely wondered, that watching him the last 2 weeks before he left, is he the guy that's the most out on the coaching staff? Like, is he just done with these dudes? And if he returns and it's, hey, you're not on the power play and you're not getting as much ice 5-on-5 either, I hope so. I hope as long as things are winning that it's the whole winning cures everything, but it's a huge story moving forward, man. And maybe he just jumps in and it's all stupid words from guys like JD who shouldn't have cared about adding a talented player. And I'm not worried about adding him. I'm just curious what's going to happen.
Yeah, and it kind of comes back to the start of the conversation. That, to me, is a big piece. I think Nylander taking this time off, whether it's injury or whatever it may be, whatever he has, I think it is good for a reset. Mm-hmm. And then when he comes back, blank slate.
Yeah.
Right? Here's your blank slate. This is what we're going to do. You're on the second PP. You're going to start on the third line. Right? We're going to move Cowan or someone off. I don't know. But let him earn it back and go about it the right way. That's not to say he won't get his minutes or you won't find him to get on the fourth line when you need a goal or you need to get him up on the first line and stuff like that. But just blank slate, here's what it is. Come back, do your thing. Let's win a Stanley Cup. Let's make this lineup as deep and as good as possible. Let's have some inter-competition and buy into the way these guys have been playing when you've been out.
Yeah. So Matthews, last 5 games, 7 goals, 11 points.
Yeah.
29 shots. His ozone touches are way up. Like, his slot chances are way up. He's obviously scoring way more than he was all season long, like more than double what he was doing all season long. What are you seeing?
Yeah, there's confidence, reading, anticipating plays, even on that, the one breakaway he got, just how he knew that where that puck was going and he popped out to get the breakaway. Now he's got to finish on those breakaways, but just how he's anticipating the play. And when you're anticipating offensively, that tells me or tells any hockey player that he's confident. He's reading the situation. He understands where he needs to go on the ice. Also, like when I was at the game against Winnipeg, when he got that goal at the end on the power play, he's just he's super poised in the slot right now too. He's not really rushing his shot. He's not overhandling. He's just getting the puck, kind of holding, finding where he's needing to shoot, and then ripping it. So I think before he was rushing his shot or he was holding on too long. And we talked about that. I think it was, a couple months ago. But when he's confident, he has a lot of that little extra poise that you need when you're in a tight area. How is he going to hold it? How long is he going to hold it? And when's he going to shoot it? And that play to me is where he just caught it against Winnipeg, coming across the ice, held it, and then ripped it. And it went, obviously it goes in the net. And similar to the play when Nyes makes to him, he's just finding ways to get to good spaces on the ice. He's reading, anticipating well. And that just tells me his confidence is high, right? He's skating harder. He's going to hard areas. He's finding ways to hold on to pucks and get pucks back. He's just doing all the little things right. And now he's scoring. And now he's feeling it. And that's a big thing I thought at the start of the year, whether it was injury or not. I don't know if as much injury as confidence. And you just see a guy who's playing with a lot of swagger and confidence.
I will say this too, man. When Matthews is getting the support throughout the lineup, if you can play Scott Lawton for 17 minutes the way that you did.
That's the other thing. Other guys scoring.
But also other guys being able to make the defensive lift that all of a sudden they were really asking of Matthews, where it's, hey, be Anze Kopitar, and you go, all right.
Yeah. You don't have to go take this face off.
Yes.
You don't have to overtax yourself in this defensive situation. 100%. That's a big piece of it. Like the depth of the lineup and the guys that can help them too, give them more opportunity. I mean, what did he play? He played 18 last night?
He played, I think, 19. 19? Yeah, under 20, but it was 19 something.
Yeah, like he's not used in all those situations that would overtax him as well before, right?
Okay, so we got to touch base. You and I were texting about this a little bit, but last year we had a big conversation after Canada lost to the juniors because looked a lot like the way they lost this year at the juniors, which is, to me, a team where you can really see the individualism creep into hockey development and looking less and less like a team sport and more like a bunch of individuals that are together. And I know that sounds harsh, but I don't really blame the kids. My takeaway from this is sort of the way that the game is going, and it's allowed the rest of the world to catch up. If you're just going to be the skill development country, well, a lot of different places can do that. And one thing that has been notable is a country like Czechia, who keeps bouncing the Leafs, the Team Canada, is playing in a way that Team Canada kind of used to, where it's everybody bought in, everybody hard on forecheck, hitting pieces that move. And Latvia did the same thing to them, where they played this really tight game. It was 1-1. Canada might lose that game, if not for one of the worst calls I've ever seen in a hockey game, a major on what was just like a totally normal nothing hit. I'm just going to put it down to this, which is, what do you think is happening right now? Because you're very involved, obviously, with Clever at the youth level that can be better right now.
Yeah, I think, again, like I'm involved more at the younger ages, but like you said, that individual skill, like you look at Canada's lineup, they had how many first rounders? Yep. Like Canada is producing a ton of great hockey players still. The world is catching up based on there's just more kids playing, better development in Europe, better hockey players coming from all around the world. And that's what we've always wanted, right? We've wanted other countries to be better, and that's what's happening. They're doing a great job across the world. I think when you're touching on the individual skill development, there has definitely been a premium placed on that, and intangibles lack from that at times, right? And when you watch that Team Canada team, I mean, they had 18 first rounders or whatever it was. Every single forward was a first rounder. But to me, watching that was like watching just a skill clinic almost, right? Besides Martin and a little bit, or actually O'Reilly too. But there was no buy-in to the structure of how to win. And the team wasn't set up that way, right? You had a lot of guys that played very similar. So for me, the issue with the Hockey Canada right now on their team that they built, they didn't really build the team. They just put all the best collection of players together. I know they missed a couple guys in Ontario that all similarly played the same way, and they didn't get inside. So the stylistic way of playing, which wasn't, really our like MO back in the day, that's not what we did great. We were a physical country, similar to what Latvia did to us and the Czechs did to us. But it was we were not playing Canadian hockey hard, like block shots, defend, get it up the ice, hit guys, right? Play at a high pace. It was more about hold the puck, find backdoor plays. I'm like, how many backdoor passes can we throw, right? Someone get to the net, someone do that. But when those guys are all just like the top skill guys and you're putting them together, well, that's kind of the recipe you're going to get. But Hockey Canada and Canadian players, there's a ton of great players. There's a ton of great players now. There's a ton of great players coming up. I've seen a lot of them. But the issue for me was the stylistic way to play that didn't allow them to succeed in that tournament based on the roster that was constructed.
So no one's doubting the depth of talent that Canada still produces, right?
Yeah.
And we, frankly, are still the country that continues to produce the Connor McDavids and the Macklin Celebrinis, right? Where we hit on these guys that are just a different level. And I've seen people make the excuse of, well, if Canada would have had Celebrini there, if they would have had all the guys that are in the NHL.
We had all the guys.
But also, that's always been the case with Canada. Always there's been guys that are in the NHL and they could have been down there, and yet Canada still dominated those tournaments. And for me, like, I get what you're saying in terms of the roster makeup of, okay, it's a lot of skill guys, but I had Jason Buchel on before the tournament, and last year that was one of the excuses where they went, oh, okay, well, they
didn't take enough top guys.
Yeah, they didn't take enough top guys, and they still didn't.
And for me, like, when they are coming up, right, the game has changed.
That's
like,
it.
They don't hit till they're 14 now. I know in Europe, I think they hit or 12 or 13.
I don't think we hit till 14 growing up though either though, right? Like
no, I was 12 when we started hitting.
Oh, really?
Pee-wee.
I was. Yeah. You hit in Pee-wee? Oh, I didn't hit until Bantam.
Yeah. And then it got changed like about 6-7 years later. So we were 12, 13 in Pee-wee, and then that changed. But yeah, it's just the way to play the game. Like you said, it is, a lot of it is about individual skill development and not taking into the entire fact that there's intangibles in every piece of the game.
Yeah.
Right. And for me, that's always going to be a bit of the fight is, you know, how much effort in the development process do you put into one area? The player needs to be well-rounded and whole, but also some players play to their strength, right? Where it's like, oh, this kid can't skate great yet, but he can really think the game and he can hit, right? So obviously he needs to learn how to skate a little bit better. But it is the stylistic way to play. And now it's come more about like puck possession and stuff, and that's still a great thing. Mm-hmm. But it's just getting that, I guess, into the hockey player that you got to play hard. This is how you play, right? It's not always going to be hitting guys backdoor, toe drags and stuff like that. You can do that, but there's a certain way to play the game. And I think that's just always going to be the fight with, you know, the developing coming up. Like what do you do? How do you do it? Right? Who's the best to do it? There's a lot of great developers out there. And I do have individual skill development for my players. But how much emphasis do you put on that over intangible?
Yeah, I think that's tricky. And the way that I'm seeing sports go in general, because like this isn't just a hockey issue. This is a basketball issue too, where kids are going to AAU earlier and they get skills coaches. And now all of a sudden they're not playing with the same teams. They're getting put on a stack team and then they go work with their individual trainer to be able to work on a certain couple of skill sets that are coveted at the NBA level. And yeah, some of the other stuff is lost. And I'm seeing a little bit as an outsider of that same thing seep into hockey. Anyway, we're short on time. We're going to have to do a little bit more of this another day because I think there's a lot of meat on the bone with this and I do have other questions. But yeah, man, this was great. Thanks for doing it.
Yeah, thanks. And there's a lot of great players coming still. So Canada should be proud of all their hockey players.
We're proud of the hockey players, all right? Nobody's being mean to the kids. That's one of my biggest things from this tournament is, you know, I get that there's a lot of pressure on those kids, and I know that there's social media trolls that do whatever, but that's not the general sentiment that I have been getting, that this is like, oh, wow, it's blaming the player. Some guys absolutely are going to be criticized. I think Gavin McKenna is getting a lot of heat. People are just like writing off his career essentially immediately, and I'm like, man, that's a lot of pressure. Easton Cowan dealt with it a year before. But overall, I feel like the bigger conversation that's happening is not who got selected, but what are we doing as a country to put these kids in the best position? Anyways, quick break. I want to come back and talk about Big Baby.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kazuma Okamoto. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I am very happy to join Blue Jays. I will work hard every day and do my best for the team. Thank you for your support. Nice to meet you. Go Blue Jays.
I'm an Okamoto guy. Like I said off the top, I really covet a sense of humor, and that guy has it. Made a great joke about watching the Blue Jays playoffs and what his impressions were of John Schneider, and he's like, he has a scary face, but he seems like he has a nice guy, something along those lines. Laughed. I like this guy. Seems like he's got a good personality, gets it, clearly going to come in here and work hard, open to a bunch of different ideas. Again, like these media conferences with introductory stuff, they're all about just, for me anyway, supposed to hear stuff from Atkins, didn't really say too much. He did say one thing that I'm going to touch on later in the show. I'm going to talk a little Blue Jays after I get to some NFL news, because now we've got a bunch of head coaching vacancies, including now the Baltimore Ravens. So I've got Dan Graziano coming up. Looking forward to that. But yeah, sense of humor, real personality. Jays are talking about how he's flexible to a variety of different options in terms of trying to help this team win. Love a buy-in guy because, yeah, there's going to be nights where good players don't get to play because of the way that this team is currently built. He seems bought in on that. I like that a lot. Love the story about his daughter picking the Blue Jays logo, like, might be a lie. I don't know. See, sounds like a lie, but I don't know. Maybe he's honest. Maybe she did pick the Blue Jays out of a lineup, and that's where he ended up going. I'm sure the $60 million didn't hurt. Like, he's got Scott Boras sitting beside him. I'm guessing that he's like, well, my daughter picked it. He's like, okay. That's very cute. Cute story. Let's move on to where the money is. His nicknames are Big Baby and Big Oak. And I can't decide which one of them I like more. Big Baby's a little more complicated just because we already had Big Baby Davis, and I am a hoops guy, so it's hard for me to separate that from him. And also, he did turn out to be a big baby. Like, he cried during a game. Big Oak is so great. David Singh, great write-up on what he learned from the Okamoto media conference. I learned that Canada has 12 different types of oak trees. So there's some Canada stuff with that one. I like them both. I can't decide which nickname that I want to roll with. Big Baby is way more fun, but Big Oak is imposing. If he starts hitting homers, it's going to be hard not to do Big Oak. I think I'm probably going to lean Big Baby, even with the Glenn Davis stuff. All right, quick break, and Dan Graziano. Yesterday, the NFL world seemed pretty shocked. John Harbaugh, after spending 18 seasons with the Baltimore Ravens, which included a Super Bowl, and the last 4 years being 10-7, 13-4, 12-5, and then just this year they missed the playoffs 8-9. He gets fired. I got to say I wasn't as surprised. I thought that this was kind of on the table because it seemed as though the writing was on the wall when we got a Baltimore Sun article 2 weeks before the end of the regular season. And I'm not saying Harbaugh was the source on the story, but yeah, it just looked like there was a bit of a fracture between the quarterback and the coach. And as successful as Harbaugh had been, and as great as it is that he did win a Super Bowl, I don't know, maybe I was a little too close to it because my brother's a Ravens fan, but the sense of, hey, they're not getting over the hump during Lamar Jackson's prime. Is this becoming exhausting? Is there a disconnect between the coach and the quarterback? And it's hard not to think when you've got a guy who, again, has 18 seasons with your team, a Super Bowl, and those past 4 winning seasons, or those 3 winning seasons before this one, that happens to be the case. But now we've got Baltimore, Cleveland, the New York Giants, the Raiders, the Cardinals, the Falcons, the Titans, all looking for new head coaches. And yeah, one of those things is not like the others. Joining me now is NFL insider for ESPN, Dan Graziano. Thanks for doing this, man. It's great to have you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. So, yeah, we got to start with Harbaugh because, yeah, people seemed really surprised by the firing. I'm curious what your read was on it.
It had started to sound like, I was surprised it happened yesterday.
Yeah.
Because it had started to sound like, oh, the Ravens are going to have organizational meetings and discussions throughout the week, see what the right way is to move forward. And I didn't think anyone was ruling out the possibility of a parting of ways between them and Harbaugh. But, there were also possibilities that they would discuss staff changes. There is a question to be dealt with regard to Lamar Jackson and his contract. He has 2 years left, but his salary cap number balloons to almost $75 million next year. So he's due for another extension. The last time they went through that, it was kind of got ugly. There was a trade demand. And so, my impression of it was like there was going to be sort of this holistic picture of where the organization is and how everybody fits into it. Sounds like those discussions accelerated pretty quickly and that the owner was driving them, and that, they got to a point where if there were going to be coordinator changes, it didn't seem like John Harbaugh was too into that. So the ownership making a quick decision to move on. And my read on it is that, they do intend to keep Lamar Jackson long term, and that, as you mentioned, things seem to have gotten a little ugly between Lamar and the coaching staff behind the scenes. So if you do intend to keep Lamar, then maybe coaching staff changes are the way to go. It seems to be where the Ravens landed.
Which is so weird to me because, again, I mentioned my brother, he's a huge Ravens fan. So a couple of years, I guess this was, this is more than a couple of years ago now. I think it's 2019. But I went down to watch the Ravens and the Seahawks play in Seattle, and it was one of the like famous Lamar regular season games where they get stopped on a 4th down, and the Ravens did a great job with their social media group of like clipping this moment where he's going up to Harbaugh, and Harbaugh asks him if he wants to go for it, and Lamar's like, I want to go for it. And he basically stamps down his first MVP in Seattle against Russell Wilson, and the two of them were just two peas in a pod. Yeah. They seemed like they had like a real connective tissue between a head coach and a quarterback. And I'm curious if you know when this started to change, because this year, all of a sudden it got hit with us like, hey, these two guys might not really get along. And you're like, whoa, okay. Like, since when? Why?
So I don't think it's as simple as not getting along. I think if you go back to like when Lamar Jackson was in the draft coming out of Louisville, and I remember somebody asking me on an interview much like this, you know, do you think he'll be a success in the NFL? And my answer was, well, tell me who's going to coach him, because this is a unique kind of player, right? And if he were to land in the wrong spot, then that might have been bad for him. It might have taken him a while to reach the heights that he reached early on in Baltimore. But Baltimore is a stable organization, and you know, you had a coaching staff in place there that saw, hey, we still have Joe Flacco, we can still play games with him as our starter, but here's a special talent. Let's see if we can get him and build an offense around him and have success that way, even while we're still trying to win now with Flacco. Then Flacco gets hurt his rookie year, Lamar goes in, and all of a sudden there's no stopping this train. So you had a situation where John Harbaugh and his coaching staff were the right ones for Lamar Jackson, because they understood we're not going to just plug him in and run the same offense we run with Joe Flacco. That's not going to work. Different kind of player, but an incredible one that can do things other people can't. So let's find out what those are and how to build the offense around them. And they had success, 2 MVP awards, playoff appearances. You mentioned the win totals, even the last couple of years. So that's all great. And that structure was important for Lamar Jackson, and Lamar Jackson was important for the Ravens. But over time, I think, you know, when you don't have the success you're intending to have, when you don't get to the Super Bowl, when you don't win the Super Bowl, when you don't have the postseason success, you get the Chiefs in your building in the AFC Championship game, and at the low ebb of Chiefs offense under Andy Reid, and you still can't beat them. You know, frustration mounts. Lamar Jackson misses time with injuries in multiple seasons. There's a contract situation where, you know, he's difficult to deal with, and the team gets frustrated. They ultimately get to a deal, but, you know, damage might be done. He gets to a point in the season where he doesn't practice on Wednesdays, right? So, like, how do you, as a coach, like, you're now out in front and you have to be constantly saying the right things because that's the right way to manage and coach this person. I think over time that can wear on you. And I'm not saying that, like, there's this irreparable rift between John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson. I don't think that's the case. But I think, you know, things pile up and you get to a point where, like, do I really want to keep going with this? Do I really want to keep dealing with the frustrations that come with this if we're not ultimately having the success? And so I think that's probably a better way to look at it. We have been told that, you know, there are, you know, between Lamar and other members of the coaching staff, maybe there have been some disagreements. So I don't want this to be presented as me saying, like, Lamar is a problem case.
Sure.
I think what we have is the Ravens and Lamar have reached the point in their relationship where the structure that's been in place around him since he got into the league may not be the right one anymore. And that may be, he may contribute to that. John Harbaugh and his staff may contribute to that. It may just be the way of personal relationships and how they change and evolve over time. But I think that's probably a pretty roundabout and long-winded way of explaining sort of where I think the situation stands.
So, again, when you have those kind of heartbreaking defeats, like, one of the things that has gone, I would say, football viral over the last couple of days is showing the breadth of disappointment that Ravens fans have had over the last decade, right? Just the amount of heartbreaking losses, where it's been like Antonio Brown pushing a ball over the goal line to eliminate them from the playoffs, where it's been Mark Andrews dropping the ball for the 2-point conversion, the Zay Flowers fumble, the loss to the Titans, the, you know, like the pick 6 against Buffalo. Like, there's so many that you can look at and just say, God, you know, there's a case to be made.
Bengals recover a fumble on the 1-yard line and run it all the way back.
I forgot about that one.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
So you can say that, hey, it's time for a change. I'm not a big, like, change for the sake of change guy, but when you have this many heartbreaking defeats, and especially throughout Lamar's career, I'm open to the idea of change. I think that the bigger question for me is when I look at the coaching landscape, there doesn't seem to be like an obvious fit to me. My pitch when I had Brady Quinn on Monday was before the news was announced. I said, I think that the Browns and Ravens should just flip coaches, that would make things unbelievably compelling, where you just get Stefanski with Lamar and you get Harbaugh as a culture setter in Cleveland. But where do you think that the Ravens coach, I know it's very early, but where do you think that this coaching search starts?
Your scenario remains on the table, right? Yeah. Like that's both those openings still exist and both those coaches are still looking for jobs. So that's the thing, right? Like 18 years, you may not, and by the way, they did win a Super Bowl with John Harbaugh, but you may not have had the success recently that you think you should have had. Okay, well, who are you going to get? Like that's, there's nobody out there with John's resume.
Getting Clint Kubiak?
So who are you going to get? What's that? Well, that's the thing. You don't know. You didn't know 18 years ago when you hired John Harbaugh, who was special teams coordinator for the Eagles, that he was going to be this. You hoped. And you might have said, if you're Ozzie Newsome, at the time, like, this guy has the qualities we think can be a successful head coach over a long period of time. But everybody who's hiring a coach thinks that. And very few of them are correct, especially to the extent that the Ravens were in this case. So who's it going to be? What are you looking for? John Harbaugh was the building. Like, he has been the culture there for a very long time. So you're now replacing all of that. Are you looking for someone who can specifically coach Lamar Jackson and get the best out of him and elevate his game to the next level? Are you looking for somebody who can reset the tone and the culture in the organization? Do you really need that? Like, John Harbaugh, it's very nuanced, right? Like, you can't just point and say, like, their postseason failures are John Harbaugh's fault. Like, I don't think anybody really believes that.
No.
And I don't think Steve Bisciotti, the owner of the Ravens, believes that. But you've now gotten to a point where, like, all right, this model isn't Super Bowl caliber. We're just, whatever it is, whether it's Lamar, whether it's Harbaugh, whatever we're doing, we need to change something if we want to win another championship. So that's tricky. And now you can say you have the history and the culture. You have the brilliant MVP level quarterback. So a coach with some talent, with some ability, is going to be in a position to succeed. This is the best of the openings now, right? Baltimore, there's no other team. I mean, everybody else, they're in better shape. 8 and 9, not great, but still better than the Giants and the Browns and all. So, I think that's tricky now. What are you looking for, and how do you hit the same level of home run you did with John Harbaugh? The comparison everybody keeps going back to, and I think it's fair, Andy Reid in Philadelphia, who ironically is John Harbaugh's mentor. He gets fired in Philadelphia. I believe the Chiefs hired him 5 days later, and that's worked out pretty well.
Yep.
So Philadelphia went to Chip Kelly. That didn't work. Then they went to Doug Peterson. They won the Super Bowl, and then he's gone in a few years. So even though Philadelphia has had success, Super Bowl success, on a level they couldn't get to without Andy Reid, there still was this sort of period of like, well, who do we get to replace this guy who was obviously great? So Baltimore's in that zone, and I think it's going to be very difficult for them to find a John Harbaugh successor that gives them what John Harbaugh did.
Yeah.
But that's the mission, and there'll be no shortage of people interested in it, I'm sure.
Well, what you just said there, though, is so fascinating, because when I think about the Ravens, I do think about culture, right? Like, they are a culture organization, whether it's Ozzie Newsome, whether it's ownership, and it has been this stable coaching throughout this time. And that obviously should be a consideration for your organization. You still want it to be the quote-unquote Ravens way, but how much are you balancing the Lamar Jackson equation when he's got that contract coming up, and how much you're trying? I don't like placate him sounds like strong language, but trying to get him invested in who this next coach is and feel as though he is the centerpiece of this decision versus what you think is best for your organization long term, because ultimately you're trying to hire the next John Harbaugh. You want another guy who's with you for another 2 decades of play, not just someone who's here for Lamar's tenure. But the Lamar contract of this makes it super interesting because you mentioned it. He did already have a really difficult contract dispute with the Ravens, to the point where Jason LaCanfora, a guy who's very plugged in Baltimore, is writing about how it's done. Like, they can't come back from this. It had gotten so bad, and it did. But yeah, and money cures all, whatever. There seemed to be some discussion about collusion around the league, whether or not that was actually at play with Lamar. Why didn't anybody make a significant offer? But this contract that's coming up, he represents himself. And
Mm-hmm.
my guess is he's going to want to get this done as soon as possible, given all the injuries this year and that he's turning 29. So how do you think this plays out?
I don't see, that's the thing, without the agent involved. Like Lamar, I don't know Lamar's mind on contract.
Right.
He may be fine. Like he may be fine playing it out for 2 years. He's got the leverage. If the Ravens can't carry a $75 million cap hit next year, that gives Lamar the leverage. Hey, I don't have to do anything. I'm under contract, right? 2 years. Like I'm not worried. It's not my job to manage your salary cap. So that could be the answer. And it's a tricky negotiation because of the fact that you have to get Lamar himself invested. You don't have a go-between. You don't have an agent going to Lamar and saying, hey, now's the time to do this. And here's why, right? You can, as the Ravens can say that, but you are in this relationship, which is to say a contract negotiation, you're his adversary. So why should he trust you? So that piece is missing. I don't know what Lamar will want to do. I don't know what the Ravens will want to do. The new coach should be a part of that decision-making, I would think, because to your point, they want to hire a coach that's going to be there longer than Lamar is. Like that's, you want a coach to be there next, like you say, 20 years. Lamar's career, no matter what, is not going to be that long. So, I think that's a very tricky and sticky situation. Now, you talk about the culture and the history there, the front office, Ozzie Newsome, and now Eric DaCosta, who came up under Ozzie. There's a lot of continuity there in terms of how they do things, the ways they make decisions. John Harbaugh has been a part of that for 18 years. So that's a big piece you're taking out of it. But you do still have that infrastructure. So if you're the Ravens, you can say, well, this is what we're about. This is why we make these decisions this way. This is why we want to approach the quarterback about a contract. This is why we don't. This is why we want to do certain things in the contract and try and keep other things out of the contract. So you have all that defines this sort of pending negotiation whenever it takes place. Well, you don't have, because of the fact that, it's uncommon for Lamar's situation, work without an agent, all that stuff. What you don't have is a clear sense of where it lands.
Yeah,
it could still get to a point where they don't get a long-term deal done with Lamar Jackson, and if that happens, you definitely want a head coach in place that's part of your culture that can help you pivot to whatever comes next. And that's the layers to this situation with John Harbaugh out in Baltimore are different than they are in any of the other 6 places where they're looking for a head coach, because of the fact that you have a highly successful organization over a long period of time that's trying to pivot to something, that continues that success, as opposed to like the Giants or the Browns who are looking for a franchise savior.
Yep. So, but my read on this conversation with you is that you don't get the sense that Lamar's future in Baltimore is in peril.
I think it's uncertain. I mean, he signed for 2 more years. There does need to be an extension at some point in the next 2 years if we're going to have some confidence that he's there long term. I don't get the sense that the Ravens are dying to move on from him. And if they move this quickly on the head coach, and if part of the reason is some sort of rift between Lamar and the coaching staff, which we think there's at least some smoke there, then it seems like the organization would want to keep Lamar long term. I mean, it's possible they decide to get rid of both and start from scratch. But I think the likelihood is the Baltimore Ravens ownership understands what is special about this player, what is special about him to their fan base, right? Like you are still, you're trying to win a championship. You're also selling your product. And to remove Lamar Jackson from Baltimore would infuriate a significant portion of your customer base. So you're balancing all of that. I think big picture, the Ravens would like Lamar to be there forever and to win championships for them. And I think he would too. It's just a question of whether, you get to a point where like, that's not going to work. So we need to make major changes. The Ravens are at least part of the way to that point. How far it goes with regard to Lamar remains to be seen.
So the Harbaugh side of this, just in terms of his future, I love your comparison to Andy Reid, because that's the way that this feels like. He's the top of the pile, and he's the very clear top of the pile. And if you're going to get him, my guess is that outside of Harbaugh deciding that he wants to take a lot of time, that organizations are going to make up their mind very quickly on him and try to move very quickly on him. So if you remove the Ravens, which we both agree are at the very top of the pile when it comes to these teams, which one of them do you think is the most attractive? Because Giants, Browns, Raiders, Cardinals, Falcons, Titans, that almost sounds like you tried to collect the worst group of teams for what you were, if you were trying to build a future.
When I started covering football, Mike Shanahan told me something that stuck with me. He said, when you're considering a head coach job, the two questions you have to ask yourself are, who's the quarterback and who's the owner?
Yeah.
And not necessarily in that order. So those teams you list, what do they have? Giants have a young quarterback who's exciting and looks like he might be something. The Falcons, maybe.
Yeah.
The Titans, people like Cam Ward a lot. But that ownership situation in Tennessee, what is that? Like they've been firing a lot of people lately.
Yeah.
They've been restructuring their front office on an annual basis.
Yeah.
Like, do they have a real vision for what they want to be? The Giants haven't had a lot of success lately, but at least you know who you're dealing with there, right? Like there's a history of ownership behavior that you can kind of lean into. Obviously you have to be comfortable with the front office structure there. They're keeping the general manager, unless they do a Jacksonville Jaguars from last year and decide they need to move on from the GM to get the coach they want. I don't know that that's the case with Harbaugh. I'm just saying, like, you're dealing with some stuff within New York that you have already in place. And you have the quarterback, most likely. Raiders, Cardinals, those quarterback situations are murky, so they probably rank behind it. So I guess that's a long way of saying Giants seem to me to be the most appealing of those six.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to see if this results in more openings. We had Adam Schefter report yesterday that within 45 minutes of the firing, that Harbaugh's agent heard from 7 teams. Now, there's only 6 other than the Ravens, who certainly weren't one of those. So that means at least one team that still has a coach called to see if Harbaugh would be interested in a job that isn't open. So I think that's worth watching too. Are there situations that he's got his eye on that he wonders if that comes open, would it be better than Giants or Titans or Cardinals, et cetera?
That's fascinating.
Right. So of the 6 that are currently open, the ones I'm hearing the most that have appeal for candidates are Giants and Falcons, and to some extent Titans if you're into Cam Ward, which a lot of people are. But yeah, I think he's going to have options. And one of those options, as you referenced, is to not coach. Like, he might want a year off. He might. But I did think if he wants to do what Andy Reid did and bounce real quickly to another situation, he's going to have his pick.
Yeah. I like what you said about the owner and the quarterback, because if you're looking at it from me, it's, if you like Cam Ward, that's great. But that ownership situation, as you mentioned, is spooky. I think like what you just referenced there is like AFC South in general. When you're entering into that territory, you don't get the same confidence in what your ownership is and the stability of what your job is going to look like. If you like Jackson Dart and the ownership, then that looks like the most appealing. Arthur Blank being a good owner as well, someone that you can kind of rely on. But I don't know what the future of Penix is, but maybe they're not married to that despite making that aggressive move in the draft. Yeah.
Atlanta also offers the possibility that you can have some say in the front office structure because they still don't have a GM.
Yeah.
So that's a part of it. That could be appealing.
Yeah,
right?
that would be.
You find your own pairing and somebody you can work with. But anyway, go on.
Well, Belichick's probably looking at that now, being like, see, it should have been me. Like, I could have been the GM and the coach of the Falcons. You could have me. Like,
that was his idea.
I'm sure the Falcons are regretting it. They're like, God, we could have had Jordan in the building too. Well, imagine the ticket sales.
Yeah.
The thing you mentioned there, though, about the vacancies not being set and clear, my brain immediately goes to one team, which is playing this weekend. And that is the Buffalo Bills. Because if they get bounced in the first round by the Jacksonville Jaguars, how certain are you that they're going to keep their coach?
I think as certain as one can be in a world where John Harbaugh just got fired,
So
which is to say not 100%, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard one whisper out of the Buffalo Bills building to indicate dissatisfaction with Sean McDermott. He has built something there that didn't exist. They missed the playoffs 17 years in a row before he got there, and now they make it every year. That is nothing to sneeze at just because they haven't had playoff success. I think ownership really likes Sean McDermott. He works really well with the GM there. The structure they have in place, they put a very good team on the field every single year. So I would be surprised if that happened.
Okay.
I also did not think the Ravens were going to straight up fire John Harbaugh. I thought that he might walk away, but surprise is certainly one of the possible outcomes. My thoughts were more like situations we were watching over the last couple of weeks that, like Miami or a Tampa Bay, right? Boy, wouldn't it be something if Pittsburgh did it?
Yeah, God. That's what I'm hoping for is interdivisional
right?
hatred. Like, I just love when rivalries become
just
more
have them
intense.
switch places.
Yes,
right? Like,
that's
that
it.
would be something else. I don't know how the fans would feel about that in either place, quite frankly. They spend so much time hating someone, and then all of a sudden you have to root for them.
Yeah, I know. It's hard.
But yeah, so I think that's going to be interesting to see if it does shake up the landscape. Buffalo, I mean, people bring up Buffalo. I think a lot of times the people that bring it up are like agents that represent coaches that hope it comes open because it's a good, who wouldn't want to coach Josh Allen?
Yeah.
Right. But so I don't know how realistic that is. Like I said, you have to leave yourself an opening because anything can happen. These owners are billionaires that make up their minds, and don't have to explain it to anybody. So, but I don't get the sense that Sean McDermott's on thin ice. I've never gotten that impression.
Okay, that's great. Hey, Dan, I really appreciate you making the time today. I know you're very busy and it's a
Sure
very
thing.
busy season, but thanks for doing this, man. It was great to chat.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
Take care, man. Dan Graziano of ESPN. Okay, 2 quick things. Well, actually 3 quick things off that now I mention it. One is just when he mentioned the billionaires thing and how they can just make their decisions and not have to explain it to anybody. God, I would love that. God, I was built for that. Why couldn't I just be wealthy? Why couldn't I have just had family members who did the work and not me, that I walked into the cash? God, it would be so sweet just to be like, yeah, who cares? Fire that guy. He makes how many $1 million? I don't care. Whatever, I'll pay it. Next guy. That's how I'm feeling. 2, the Bills thing. I don't know. To me, that sounds exactly like Harbaugh, except for you don't have any pelts on the wall. Like year over year of you just can't quite get over the hump, and you've got a one-of-one quarterback, and you want to keep him happy, and you want to feel like you're taking advantage of having who is the best quarterback in the NFL in Josh Allen. And if you lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars and they happen to just get a new head coach who got the most out of their quarterback, I don't know. I would be thinking about it. If I had billions of dollars, I'd be thinking about it. And didn't have to explain to anybody. I get it that the Bills are not the Ravens in the sense of you have organizational stability that goes even beyond that coach. But if I'm a Bills fan, which I kind of am in the sense of I want to see them succeed, and I would really love it if they won a Super Bowl. Not this year, because it got to be the Hawks. There's a new pope. It's a Hawks year. But if they lose in the first round of Jacksonville and John Harbaugh's out there and he's willing to come coach my team, even Kevin Stefanski, who I'm higher on than I think a lot of Browns fans are right now, maybe even the NFL at large. I look at Stefanski and I'm like, this is one of the guys. What am I missing here? Like, what did he have he won Coach of the Year a couple of times with nobodies. So, yeah. If I was the Bills and those 2 guys were available and Sean McDermott gets bounced in the first round, I had $1 billion. And I was desperate to see my team win. I'd be thinking about it. Last thing with the Ravens. This is my worry. Because you do have organizational stability and you do have a culture and you just lost a culture setter, you can survive that. Of course you can survive that because you do have Ozzie Newsome still in the building. You do have a really good owner. You do have a great structure within that team that can endure. And if you bring in the right coach, the hope is that that guy will become the next Harbaugh, 18 years, Ravens way, blah, 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 go on down the line. But when you do have a culture, man, that's like unbelievably important. And this is, I think, the thing that the Steelers have dealt with this last decade where they haven't won a playoff game. Because I'm pretty sure the last time the Steelers won a playoff game was in 2016. They beat Miami. And then they won another game. I know they lost to the Pats. Either way, it's tough to lose year-over-year success and to be in the mix and to feel like you are a team that has that as a discernible advantage, especially in a league where there are so many teams like the ones that I just mentioned here. Browns, Raiders, Cardinals, Falcons, Titans. What are you signing up for? Who knows? Who knows? You got to build the culture there. You got to, this is going to take a unbelievably heavy lift for us to look at those teams and feel different than the way that we do now. Because throughout basically their entire existence, well, that's strong because I know the Raiders had their time and the Browns had their time, but let's be real. Over my lifetime, all of these franchises have essentially been a joke. So to try to turn the culture around, wow. And Buffalo was in that category. Sorry. There was the 4 falls of Buffalo, and then after that, it's been a lot of nothing. And you've got a culture there. You've got something. And, yeah, you have to wonder how much of it is just getting that quarterback when you have the best of the best. But you got to be a little reluctant when you're going to make change. Say, boy, we don't want to go back to the way things were. And that's kind of how I feel about the Ravens, where you need to keep Lamar happy. I am not a trade Lamar guy at all. Lamar Jackson is amazing. And are there questions about his health moving forward? Of course there are. He's going to be turning 29 years old, and we saw it this year where he's not practicing on Wednesdays, and he left that game against the Packers with the back injury where there was dispute over how awful it was. But there were just, if you watch Lamar Jackson this year, you can say he wasn't healthy, but there was definitely a lot of moments where you watched him and thought, yeah, you're not moving the same way. It's not the same zip on him. That's why I love the Matthews and Lamar comparison. It's like, there's been the same thing with Matthews where you're looking at the shot and you're looking at the speed and you're like, is it the same? Are we sure? And if you're going to be investing top tier dollars into a guy and someone who you already pushed pretty hard on a contract with and things were not very smooth, my only fear if I was a Ravens fan would be you overly placate the quarterback, you give him a monstrous contract at the wrong time, it turns into a bad cycle. Some of the organizational stability you have starts to age out over that time, and then you enter a pool where all of a sudden you are just one of the other teams. It's a possibility. That would be my fear. Anyway, yesterday, Mitch Bannon of The Athletic had some interesting news. I'll say it's news on the Blue Jays. So this is from his piece, quote, and this is on Kyle Tucker and the Blue Jays free agent pursuit, because this was obviously a big part of yesterday's media conference with Okamoto is, all right, but does this eliminate you from X? Does this eliminate you from Bo? Does this eliminate you from Tucker? Is your payroll now so oversized that you just can't even make a move? Like, it has to be considered. People got to know this. If the Jays, where they're at with their luxury tax situation, if they were to sign Kyle Tucker, I think it's 90% is the cap penalty. So you're almost paying double to this guy. Yes, there would be a move or two that they have where they would try to shed some of the money. But as we've seen with these guys, like, that's not the most straightforward line with this group. And Ross Atkins said it yesterday at the media conference. If they're signing anybody else, it's going to take away time from guys they perceive to be very good major league players. And I kind of felt as though that got discounted by Blue Jays fans at large. Again, I'm just looking at this anecdotally through social media, but I saw a lot of excitement from fans going, well, he said that they're not closing the door on anything, and that means that they're going to go get Kyle Tucker, or that they might go get Bo Bichette. And I was like, I don't know. The thing about taking meaningful playing time away from others resonated a little stronger with me. And also, yeah, as much money, I think it was reported that Rodgers made $100 million on the postseason run that they made. If you're giving Kyle Tucker a contract and you're paying above what the market is because you're getting him, like you're paying the top of the pile money, but then because you're in the luxury tax situation you're in that you got to give him almost double, that's a big ass bill. I don't care how much money's coming off the books next year. You got to find ways to move money out. But how are you doing that? You're moving Santander, who's not even making that much, considering all the deferrals. Are you really going to be able to get off Barrios? Well, everybody's saying that you got to eat money anyway. So how does that work? Nathan Lucas doesn't make a lot of money, so you're moving off of him. This is when it comes to the books, it's a big old who cares. It's complicated, and pretending that it's not is, I think, a little foolish. But Mitch Bannon's right up. Gave me, I got to say, quite a bit of optimism with Kyle Tucker. And the throwaway line from that media conference was, there was a question towards Scott Boras about what's taken the market so long. And he said, this is Ross's fault. And it was a joke. And you could read it as it's Ross's fault because he's given guys money. But you could also read it as because he's in on some of the other big guys, a.k.a. Kyle Tucker. So here's Mitch Bannon. Quote, it's far from a guarantee that the Jays land Tucker. He will likely have suitors across the league, and the Jays have already spent significant financial resources on 4 free agent additions. But Toronto's interest in the 28-year-old is clear. The Jays, as reported in early December, invited Tucker to tour the franchise's development complex in Florida. Players including Guerrero and Miles Straw have commented on Tucker's social media posts all winter too. But to Toronto's recent recruitment of Tucker, a league source said, has been more aggressive. End quote. Whew. Toronto's recruitment has been more aggressive? That's news, baby. That's a something, baby. And Rosenthal helped Bannon with this piece. I don't know if that was the part of it that, Rosenthal chipped in on, but it's the two of them, and Rosenthal's looking it over. So it's a guy who's plugged in with the Jays and Bannon, and that's somebody who's very plugged in with the league and Rosenthal that are combining for a piece like this. And yeah, it's a league source. It's not multiple league sources. But yeah, it's something to monitor. I'll say this, and I kind of alluded to it yesterday. The Okamoto signing makes it more difficult to see the Blue Jays sign Kyle Tucker. Certainly Bo. I hate saying it, but it really does feel like Bo is outside of some kind of miracle where his market just does not develop entirely and the Jays can offer him a short-term deal with opt-outs like Pete Alonso ended up with last year, where the Mets fans thought he was gone, then he signs this deal, and he's a fan favorite. He comes back, he's got unfinished business, yada, yada, yada. But with Tucker, the finances make it seem so inconceivable. It's so much money. I want them to spend money. I can't stress this enough. I want to see them get Kyle Tucker, but I also understand at the end of the day, if these guys are going to him and saying, we want this amount of money, and then it's also there's a 90% luxury tax bill on it, and you're already paying the most amount of money on free agents in the offseason, and you just gave Vlad Guerrero Jr. $400 million, you might be looking at it and saying, come on, guys. I know I got deep pocketbooks, but I'm going to outspend the league by what? Anyway, but the second part of it is, it does make it feel more realistic from the standpoint of the roster makes so much more sense if they add Kyle Tucker. You look at it then and you say, oh my God, versus very good, very competitive. So a very good offseason. You can't quibble really with the signings, maybe a touch with how I know that there's some people that think Rodgers is the greatest thing ever, and that is an unbelievable signing for them, the pitcher. I can also see how it's a little polarizing given their need for swing and miss. And also, he's just an older guy. And even though he's got a great track record, age matters in professional sports. I don't care how good you've been for how long you've been. He's just a different arm. And effectiveness, all that, I'm in. Gets lefties out, awesome. Cease might not have been your guy in terms of the salary, but you can't really be upset that the Jays went out and got their guy with their starting pitchers. I think Okamoto is going to be a fan favorite, and everything points up with this dude. And who am I missing? Oh, Ponce. Yeah, great flyer, fun depth flyer that I think probably, if they keep Barrios, probably loses out to Jose Barrios, given his major league track record, and he ends up having Cody Ponce slide in the bullpen, but gives you depth with your starting pitching the following season, and maybe he's in a great swingman role. He turns out to be the Chris Bassett of last year, where he can come in and end up eating innings for you. He jumps in as a starter when they inevitably suffer an injury. Great signing. But yeah, the roster just looks like it makes sense from an on-paper standpoint way more when they add Kyle Tucker in terms of, wow, this is now the clear favorite in the American League East and the clear favorite in the American League. So I'm a little torn on it. I will admit. I obviously think that if a team blows Kyle Tucker out of the water and all of a sudden the Mets materially change their offer, or the market doesn't happen for Kyle Tucker and the Dodgers do come and say, listen, we will give you this big 3-year contract with multiple opt-outs and you'll make more money per year than any other team and you can come win a World Series, and maybe he does take that. But, man, the Blue Jays just, when you read stuff like that, it's hard not to feel like that ownership is actually kind of feeling the same way that the Blue Jays fans do, which is all right, you're going to be paying all this tax money, but a lot of the money comes off the books the next year. And you do have question marks. Varsho's a free agent. Springer's a free agent. Gossman's part of the reason that you signed Dylan Cease to the contract that you did is that you don't have certainty with Bieber leaving and Gossman leaving and whatever Barrios is going to be a year from now. So you wanted to make sure that part of your future was in place when that had a turnover. And I don't know how the same wouldn't apply to your outfield. Like, I don't think fans are going to weep if they don't re-sign Dalton Varsho because they signed Kyle Tucker. You got those two guys that they're right there, and Santander's got all the deferred money. I don't know. Just food for thought. Anyway, quick break. We'll hit what we missed. Nobody likes hearing a guy cry, but I'm going to just do it anyway. This Leafs schedule over the next couple of weeks this month is too much. And I love the Olympics. I needed best on best hockey back. God, you saw it the second they dropped the puck in the Four Nations. My God. Everybody who was the hater was like, this is even a fake tournament. It was 2 seconds and they were like, oh yeah, this rocks. This is so good. We've been dying for this. I don't think that this one can't do anything. God, what a sourpuss you had to be to hate on the Four Nations. But this schedule is so intense that if the league guys start to be like when general managers and the league start to do, well, put too much pressure on the players and we don't really like the schedule, I'm going to go, yeah, here. I'll be that guy in the back of the room shouting, yeah, maybe we just figure out something different. All right, Brandon Brown is here. What did we miss?
So the Athletics, as they were known this year, playing in Sacramento, formerly the Oakland Athletics,
yeah,
they are moving to Las Vegas, which I think we all know at this point. 2028
yes, we do.
is
I'll never like it, but it's happening. Yeah,
right. So the change might go beyond more than just where they're playing. It seems like the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office has denied their request to patent the Las Vegas or Vegas Athletics. So they might be looking for a new name. They might be able to appeal this process. But I wanted to get your thoughts on their request being denied, and if you had any thoughts for a new team name for Vegas.
Okay, well, let me say this. I'm torn on it. First thing, actually, is just how does the patent office deny this? Like, we're a sports team. I'm the owner. I want to name my team what I want to name my team. And some dork is like, no, because why? I get it when, like, Oklahoma City, they became the Thunder because the Sonics kept the naming rights with the city. They fought hard. They said, we want to keep the name the Seattle Supersonics. If we ever get a team back, they basically started mobilizing on trying to get a team back. I don't know if they ever will. My God, it's just the most hopeless situation ever. It's been so many teases and, like, it's a lock, and then it's never going to happen. But they kept the name the Sonics, and the Thunder decided to completely rebrand, and they went with the Thunder, and they didn't want to keep the Sonic stuff. They had just had New Orleans in town during Katrina. They wanted a fresh start. They were okay with leaving the name Sonics in Seattle. This is different. Like, they own the naming rights. And I have two thoughts on this. One is I hate envisioning a world where there are no A's. Like, how many people don't think that the Oakland Athletics have at least one of the best 5 uniforms in baseball? Like, I could see you not saying the best. Everybody has their own personal choices, and I think it's weird when people try to be like, that's the best uniform, and they go like, you're crazy if you don't think that. And some people almost get like bullied into saying things are the best ones because they've just become sort of in that circle of everyone says these are the best uniforms, and some, yeah, like I think are great too, but others I'm like, like I'm not as crazy about the Chicago Blackhawks stuff as other people are.
Right.
And I feel bad saying that because there are some people who are like, how could you? I'm like, I like the black ones. I like it when they go like black and red, and that's a really good look for me. And it's a classic look. I'll say this. I like all the original 6 sweaters, period. I think that they're all the best ones in all of hockey because they're classic and all that. But, yeah, I actually, like, personally, I like the Red Wings stuff more than I like the Blackhawks. All right? I'm not afraid to say it.
Well, in a similar way, too, like the A's brand is so synonymous with baseball. Like, I think that's what you're trying to get at.
It's so beautiful. It's so part of baseball. I love that hat. When I see that hat, I'm like, God, that's a nice hat. It's a cool hat. A's. Losing it stinks. But, and I know that, where did the A's originally play? They're not.
I'm not sure.
No, I don't even think it's California.
They're like a Midwest team at some point.
Google me the origin. What's the origin? Got it? Oh, no. Okay. I might have this wrong, but I'm pretty sure.
Philadelphia.
Yeah. See? Ha. Boom. So it's not even like it's like a Bay Area thing, but I've grown up with it being a Bay Area thing my entire life. And yeah, I think about them like Moneyball and Jambi. Like, I'm old. I don't like change. And I've dealt with losing a team. So I really hyper-emphasize with teams that relocate.
Yeah.
So part of me goes, I'll miss having the A's. I'll miss having that color scheme because I think if you're going to switch off the name Athletics, that don't do the colors either. Like go full Thunder, go full Las Vegas, and
full new rebrand.
Yeah, embrace some of the color schemes that they've got going on. Like they did that with the Raiders where they took it, but the Raiders had moved enough and it is kind of close. I don't know. The Raiders one, I felt more like I didn't like it, obviously. I wanted them to stay the Oakland Raiders or be the LA Raiders, but if they're going to go to Vegas, you just can't live in a world where there's no Raiders.
Well, it's felt like that team especially has moved pretty
smoothly.
Exactly. Like it felt kind of the same.
Although, I don't know. I honestly don't have an answer for this because I don't want to lose the Oakland Athletics. I don't want to lose the Athletics look. I don't want to lose the name Athletics. I saw one of you wrote to me that you think Athletics sounds confusing or something.
Well, because you brought up earlier, you don't know why this decision would have been made, but they did. So the Patent Office did issue kind of a statement about this. They said that they felt that the name Athletics was too generic and could be confused with other activities.
Yeah, that's stupid. I hate that. That's dumb. I can't stand that reasoning. That makes no sense to me. Like people will get confused. Shut up. It's my team. I want to name it when I want to name it. Stay out of it, big government. God, that's government overreach. That is government overreach. Disgusting. So, yeah, I think if you're not going to be the A's, you leave the colors. And as painful as it is, it just becomes like Sonics merch where it's retro stuff that people wear and you let Oakland people keep their team and their name. And if they ever somehow get a team back in Northern California, then give them the name, the A's, and do it that way. Yeah. So that's how I feel about it. They should just be something different. I don't have a name for Vegas. They'll just do something. The Blackjacks, like, the Aces, that's the Aces are the basketball team.
Yes, the WNBA team.
You got the Golden Knights, the Aces, and the Raiders. So, yeah, I don't care. Call them the Craps because you stole a team. You suck. You suck, Vegas. You suck stealing teams. Also, tourists can, go gamble. You're in Vegas. Gamble. Watch Celine Dion. You don't need sports right now. You have the sports books. You have the pool. You can watch football in a pool. That's not enough. You gotta steal teams. It's fine if you do the Vegas Golden Knights and you make a team, but to steal two teams, I will say that now that Marner's there and they're stealing the A's and they stole the Raiders, I hate Vegas more than any other sports city there is. They're my nemesis more than Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City only stole one team. Vegas stole two. Bye.